The National Democratic Alliance secured a landslide victory in Bihar on Friday, winning over 200 out of the 243 seats. However, the challenges begin now, given the ambitious promises made by the BJP-JD alliance in its election manifesto. Hello and welcome to The Print. I am Maushumi Das Gupta and I will tell you about the tightrope walk for NDA as deaths weigh down Bihar economy. Economists and experts are of the opinion that it will be very difficult for the NDA to meet these promises given the state's stressed finances. From promising government jobs to over 1 crore youths to making 1 crore women Lakpati Didis, providing free power of up to 125 units annually to giving rupees 3,000 annually to every farmer and more. The NDA has committed almost everything to Bihar voters in their election manifesto. The Rashtriya Janata Dal, Congress-led Mahagathbandhan, their main opponent, were also not far behind, promising jobs to one member in every family within 20 days of coming to power, among other such assurances. With the NDA getting a thumping majority now, the real challenge of delivering on the promises will start. For a state with a 40% debt to GSDP or the gross state domestic product ratio, and which is barely able to cover the salary cost of its employees from its own sources of revenue, arranging the finances to implement the schemes is not just unsustainable. It will weaken the state's ability to make routine welfare payments. In the 2025-26 fiscal, Bihar is estimated to spend rupees 1.8 lakh crore on committed expenditures, which includes salaries, pensions, and interest payments. This is 42% of its estimated revenue receipts. This leaves very limited space for capital spending on development and building new infrastructure. An analysis of Bihar's 2025-26 budget by independent think tank PRS Legislative Research shows that the state's fiscal deficit is targeted at 3% of the GSDP at rupees 32,718 crore. In 2024-25, as per the revised estimates, the fiscal deficit is expected to be 9.2% of GSDP, higher than the budgeted 3% of GSDP. In such a scenario, what do the promises made by the NDA in its manifesto mean for Bihar's future in terms of reducing poverty, unemployability, and other social indicators? Many of the experts the print spoke to said they do not see many of the NDA promises getting implemented. While Bihar's revenue expenditure will go up, but with no growth in revenue, it will be difficult to deliver on the promises. I spoke to Professor Dipanshu Mohan, Director, Center for New Economic Study, Jindal School of Liberal Arts and Humanities, and he called the manifesto promises as populism on borrowed time. He said, and I quote, "For a state like Bihar, which has already seen a revenue deficit of almost 1.5 to 2% of its state domestic product, my sense is that you cannot actualize a lot of the promises in the immediate context. A case in point," he said, is Maharashtra, where of the actual sum that was promised under the Ladli Behan Yojana, the transfer did not take place at one go. It was dispersed in tranches just for the government to say that we have met our promise. But they did it with a lag, which is not consistent with what they might have said in the manifesto. Mohan said that fiscally, for every rupees 100 of production in Bihar, rupees 40 goes into debt-related payments. That is why it is very important to look at the facts consistently. The debt receipts in Bihar for even capital revenue expenditure is not less than 90%, which means that you have very little margin for doing any kind of discretionary spending or new schemes. Punjab is another classic example. The state had a lot of debt when the Aam Aadmi Party was coming to power. The AAP came with all these sorts of promises, free power and all, whatever it was doing in Delhi. And it was argued that you can't do that because a lot of your debt payments are an overhang of previous electoral processes. Mohan says that we are going to see a very similar process in Bihar. The professor also said that if the NDA is talking about direct transfer to women, the fiscal space for doing so is extremely limited in Bihar. The reason for that is because the state has a very high accrued debt. If you see a lot of recent elections, a lot of states which were in debt have not been able to actualize what they had promised. According to the Bihar Economic Survey 2024-25, which was released in April this year, Bihar's total borrowing was rupees 60,218 crore in 2023-24, and the public debt repayment was rupees 22,979 crore. By the end of the fiscal year 2023-24, the outstanding debt of the state government was rupees 3.32 lakh crore. The state government should invest in capital expenditure to pull Bihar out of its present position at the bottom of the ladder. Professor Alak N. Sharma, director of Delhi-based Institute of Human Development, told ThePrint. He said, and I quote, "The kind of promises that the NDA has made, the government's committed expenditure will go up instead of the capital expenditure. There is simply no money left in Bihar budget which can be spent from its own sources of revenue after meeting the salaries of government employees. From where will they provide 1 crore jobs?" he asked. The only thing that can happen is because the NDA is in power at the center, so they will have to support with the central grants to finance these schemes. The report of the Comptroller and Auditor General on state finances for the year 2023-24 shows that the public debt GSDP ratio of Bihar has increased from 25.47% in 2019-20 to 38.78% in 2023-24, which indicates entailing risk in debt stabilization. Though the poverty rate in Bihar has declined considerably, it still continues to have the highest poverty rate at 33.76%. This is in 2021-22 among Indian states, according to the 2023 Niti Aayog Multidimensional Poverty Index. The per capita income of Bihar at rupees 66,828 is much lower than neighboring states like Jharkhand, where the per capita income is rupees 1,15,960. Neeraj Kaushal, professor of social policy at Columbia University, who traveled across constituencies in Bihar for over a week last month, told me that the kind of promises made by both the BJP-led NDA and the RJD Congress-led Mahagathbandhan, if implemented, are bound to have fiscal consequences. Added to this is the fact that most of the schemes are vague on details. Kaushal cited the example of the Mukhyamantri Mahila Rozgar Yojana, where the Bihar government has promised to transfer 10,000 rupees to one women member in every family with certain qualifications to help them become self-reliant. She said, and I quote, "Most women, for instance, don't know that they could prepare business plans to seek loans from banks. But some 1.5 crore women have already received the initial seed grant money in their accounts." Political parties, Kaushal said, always make tall promises which they can't or don't deliver, and voters know it. But in this case, the only good part is that these people have already delivered. The good part is that the intended beneficiaries have actually received the entire amount, unlike earlier where they used to get only a certain part of what was meant for them. So it's very efficient transfer of welfare funds. And in some ways, that's better than what used to happen earlier when there were leakages, unquote. However, it would have fiscal consequences, Kaushal said. She said that it's a dangerous path in the sense that the money already transferred under two of the schemes is 10% of the state's revenue expenditure for this year, which is a very large proportion. State governments are only allowed 3% fiscal deficit, but in 2024-25, Bihar's fiscal deficit was three times higher. So delivery of these promises will definitely have an impact on the fiscal health of the state. Though the Bihar government will have to figure out the finances to implement the various schemes announced in the manifesto, some experts feel that the economic ripple effect of the measures will be immediately visible. For instance, the rupees 10,000 being given to women under the Mukhyamantri Mahila Rozgar Yojana is a productive incentive link and will be provided up to rupees 2 lakh for self-employment. Even if 40% of these benefited women become self reliant, it will be revolutionary. This rise of the old age pension gives real help and gives confidence and joy for the respected elders. The private investment through industrial parks will boost the private investments. The economic ripple effect will be immediately visible. These steps will play a bigger role in the state's development. Bakshi Amit Kumar Sinha, a faculty at the Bihar Institute of Public Finance and Policy, an institute under the Bihar government's finance department, told me. But Sinha said that to have a real transformation in the state, the government will have to create the ecosystem to boost private investments. Development globally has happened where private investments have taken the primary responsibility of economic growth since the first industrial revolution to the latest fourth industrial revolution. But in a low private investment states like Bihar, the state government's role is huge in the area of education, health, infrastructure, investment, welfare, social security, etc. In every sphere, the state government has to play a very crucial role in a very limited resource. So the state government has to prioritize the list to deliver development with justice. The manifesto has showed the direction toward attracting private investments, generation of mass employment, as well as welfare measures, which are much needed to state for getting 2047 vision as a developed state. Under the given circumstances, it will be interesting to see how the BJP-JD government in Bihar goes about implementing what it has promised in its manifesto. That's all for now. Thank you so much for watching this special broadcast.